Do you ever feel like there's no way Jesus could love me? Or has that been the theme of your life, that I'm unlovable to God? Well, let me give you one example of why that's not true. It goes back to the story of Saul, who became Paul at his conversion. And this is from Acts 9. Then Saul, still breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord, or Jesus followers, went to the high priest and asked letters from him to the synagogues of Damascus, so that if he found any who were of the way, whether men or women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. As he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly a light shone around him from heaven. Then he fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And he said, Lord, who are you? Then the Lord said, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. Go on to 1 Corinthians 15:9. This is later when he's converted and he's called Paul, and he says, For I am the least of the apostles, and not fit to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. So think about Paul. He is one of the biggest enemies of Jesus followers, because he's out there gathering them up. He and a group are persecuting them. Some people are even killed. And so he is like Jesus' arch enemy in this situation as far as humans go. And yet what does Jesus do? Does he go after him and punish him? No, he makes him his greatest missionary of all time. He makes him the leader of his church. And he goes on multiple missionary journeys. He writes so many different letters that are now in the Bible to different churches there, and becomes the leader of the church. And so if Jesus can do that with Paul, if he can love Paul when Paul was persecuting his church, I guarantee you he can love you too. Certainly, I would think none of you have done anything as bad as Paul had done. But even if you have, there's God's grace for that. He ends up with saying, but by the grace of God, I am what I am, meaning that who he was now when he's writing 1 Corinthians, different than the person he was when he was persecuting Christians, is all by the grace of God. And so we're covered by that grace too. Be encouraged by that, friends, and live with grace.